Join Edwin Frondozo on the Business Leadership Podcast every week for a unique program featuring insights and actionable items from the world's most successful business leaders. Hear firsthand the exclusive interviews and personal journeys on how today's transformational leaders made it to the top.
This is the Business Leadership Podcast, and I'm Edwin Frondozo. Thank you for joining me today. I know for some of you listening, it has been at least 3 weeks since the COVID-19 lockdown happened. So I'm really wondering, how has self-isolation and working from home treating you? I know for me, it's been a challenge. It's been a roller coaster ride, but I also think that I've been blessed, as things could always be worse. I mean, people in our community are struggling, right? For many, leading in business can be lonely, and with added COVID-19 stresses and social distancing, there's some value in hearing from leaders facing and solving unprecedented challenges. I am really excited to share our next guest on CADA's 20 Leaders in 20 Days Virtual Shift special mini-series. Her name is Chantal Cloutier. She's a retired Royal Canadian Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, a retired Strategic Joint Staff Domestic Plans Desk Officer, and former Marauder San Jose Crisis Operations Team Lead. It's pretty cool. Chantal served as a Department of National Defense civilian as a strategic planner for the Canadian Armed Forces and Department of National Defense response to domestic emergencies, including business continuity and pandemic planning, among other things. After the H1N1 pandemic in 2009, by the way, it was the first worldwide pandemic in 40 years, she was tasked to collect all the lessons learned and recommendations for future pandemic response. What's really interesting is that her work was pulled out and dusted off as the starting point once the impact of COVID-19 began to become apparent. So in this episode, she shares her current situation, which is kind of crazy, her experience and recommendations during the COVID-19 outbreak. Having trouble keeping your newly remote teams engaged, effective, and connected? I can help. Text HELP to 416-834-0299 and we'll connect. Again, text me at 416-834-0299 and I will personally connect with you. With that, here we go.
I'm doing really, really well. I'm in a safe place. I have a plan to get home to Canada because currently I'm in Ecuador, and while the government here is doing amazing work in trying to control the spread of the COVID-19, it is still deteriorating. One of the provinces has actually gone under martial law already. And,
wow.
This is a very poor country. The people don't have much. If they are self-contained in their homes and nobody's getting them food, eventually they're going to have to get out of there and get food. And then they're going to stop obeying what the government is telling them to do. And Ecuador has a long history of social unrest. So that could happen. And if the entire country goes under martial law, I don't want to be here.
Tell us what happened for 3 weeks there as everything came out.
Oh my gosh. I mean, the
COVID-19. No electricity.
Yeah, COVID-19 was kind of bubbling up in the background, and it was just after Carnival here in Ecuador, and Carnival typically coincides with the big rainy season, and the rainy season typically results in electricity outages because all our transformers get coated in salt air, and then the water comes and they short, and so we typically experience power outages. So the power went out on the 27th of February. Us and the local communities didn't think too much about it. A couple days later, the local communities started getting their power back, and we didn't in our little remote community. And so we were getting stories that the electric company was having trouble getting the right fuses for us, and we didn't know what was going on. And then some folks, and I don't even know how they got it, they got a hold of a letter that said our community developer was in debt to the National Electric Company to the tune of $120,000, had not paid the bill for 11 months, and therefore they were cutting us off on the 1st of March. So even though they brought back the other local communities, they didn't bring us back because we were due to be cut off anyways. And then we had no electricity for 21 and a half days. And also limited water supplies during that time. We really had to ration our water because we get water delivered by truck into a water tower every day, and we were having trouble getting water because, again, our developer wasn't paying the water bill. So we had to actually do our own fundraiser to be able to sort of provide the necessities of life for people in the community.
Can you share with us, all the business leaders that are listening today, in terms of like sort of taking what you've learned from the past and how we should be really taking things, maybe first off personally, managing ourselves, our family, our loved ones, and then our businesses and how we're supposed to operate. Like this is new grounds for a lot of people, almost everyone, right?
It is, very much so. And I mean, honestly, I could not have been better prepared to deal with that particular crisis, but that was just, luck of the draw. I mean, my military background, my particular experience with pandemic planning, and even strategic planning for various emergencies. I had this wealth of background, and I looked around and said, these people are not going to survive if we don't put together a team that can actually lead them through this very difficult and challenging time. And what I decided to do, and the way I explained it to people, was we have a community full of Canadians, basically, a few Ecuadorians, but mainly Canadians, with all sorts of backgrounds, diverse backgrounds, engineers and, doctors, and you name it. We have all sorts of people. I said, everybody in this community has a superpower, and we have to tap into that superpower from every single person to make this work. And so we created a crisis operations team. We had a guy who was really good with public works. We had a guy in charge of security. We had people looking after all the logistics operations, so getting fuel for the generators, because first of all, if you don't have electricity, you live on a generator. And probably half the community had generators starting out because of the regular yearly power outages. A lot of them were too small for what we needed to do long term, and a lot of people had to go buy generators. So we were sending people out buying generators, buying fuel, and then the COVID-19 started to happen, and we started getting locked down and not able to leave the community as often. So we had to, have vehicles with the right license plate to be able to be on the road to go buy fuel, to buy food, to buy medicines, all those sorts of things. So we had to really, really self-organize. And so, like I said, everybody's got a superpower. You just got to figure out what it is. And on top of it all, our community is sort of a fractured community. We have various factions in the community that have never gotten along. And so I chose to recruit what I called a series of influencers. Their superpower was influencing people in the background and keeping the unrest and the fractiousness down so that we could focus on delivering the necessities of life.
For the business leaders who are listening, what one piece of advice would you share with them today?
Well, I think I put it actually in my survey response was perfection is the enemy of good enough. You just have to figure out what steps to take that are good enough to get you to the next step. It doesn't have to be perfect. You're going to make mistakes. Just own up when you've made mistakes. I mean, one of the early problems we had was garbage collection. Again, our garbage collectors walked off the job because they weren't getting paid. This is a recurring theme. And so the garbage was piling up and we had to get it removed. So we hired some of the guys who had previously done garbage collection and asked them, okay, please get rid of the garbage the way, you always do. Well, what we didn't know that they always did was they took it down to a little nursery we had on the side of our community, dug a big hole, stuck everything in the big hole and lit it on fire. So that night we're all lying in bed, breathing in burning plastic fumes because we didn't know what we didn't know.
Where could we find more information about management or any tips that you're looking to share?
Well, I'm on LinkedIn, and I've posted my very first actual post on LinkedIn, which was essentially a year ago. I was an immigrant in Ecuador, and this week I'm a refugee fleeing back to Canada with only my allowable baggage. So I did not see that coming. I will continue to update on LinkedIn. That's probably the most likely place I'll be putting stuff. I do it on Facebook, but my security on Facebook is pretty locked down.
That's it, Biz Leaders. Thank you for joining me on another episode of the Business Leadership Podcast. This was episode 156, CADA's 20 Leaders in 20 Days Virtual Shift miniseries. If you want to learn more about this miniseries, Chantal, or anything else that we discussed, please go to thebusinessleadership.com/156. Having trouble keeping your newly remote teams engaged, effective, and connected? I can help. Text HELP to 416-834-0299 and we'll connect. Again, text me at 416-834-0299 and I will personally connect with you. If you found this episode useful, please subscribe, rate, and leave a comment on your favorite podcast player. Thank you again. Be your best.
Thank you for listening to the Business Leadership Podcast at thebusinessleadership.com.